I think we should jump in because we've got a pretty
Yeah.
tight
Okay.
time frame.
Yep.
Okay.
And we're going to give you 15 minutes to wrap up the environmental broad strategy. And then we've got some transitional things to do before we get into the next work part, which is identifying data. And we also want to talk about the next meeting today. So we're going to march right along. So where are we on the environmental broad strategy? Which, shall I remind you what the purpose of that is?
Yes, please.
To minimize threats and maximize opportunities. That you would put out the threats and opportunities to it. So the strategy is supposed to address that, those two things.
And then just to sort of recap, and we did some emailing back and forth because we were trying to.
You guys are good.
We were trying to get closer to a final broad strategy. I think our group with that one got hung up on putting out a strategy that everyone felt was too broad and didn't really have any indication of where we go next. So we threw a couple things around, but I think we're just looking for more sort of groupthink on how to refine the strategy in relation to the dump and how I think what Jim and myself and then Greg, when he came in, what we were really trying to say is that we don't want to get locked down in what Matt called the psychology of previous investment, where we only look at the options based on what we know and what we have in front of us. And that was where this sort of envisioning word came from. And we just really want to figure out, when you form this multidisciplinary group, which in and of itself could be a strategy, how do we capture the sense of we want to be a little more innovative and, as Chuck said, have some sort of thought leadership on it. So that's what we were trying to grab. It didn't quite work. We've hashed out a couple other things, but haven't solidified anything just yet.
Right.
I don't know if anyone else
So,
had any thoughts on it. I know it's not been on the top of everyone else's minds probably.
so I guess a couple of comments, just to add to what Rita said. So we, on the one hand, I'll just read this. Our environmental goal compared to others is new territory. It's as much value identification, cultural transformation, mindset changing, as it is vendor RFP, procurement, and contract negotiations. There should be and will be tension between the idealism and reality of what to do with the landfill. I accept that. And I think that's what kind of what we're struggling with. I mean, it's easy to say, okay, what we need to do is get a multidisciplinary group. You know, we need a technology group, then we need a negotiating group, and then we got to have a bunch of people come in and tell us what we could do, we can't do, and then we go into RFP, contract negotiations, and we have a new agreement to do whatever the landfill. And then the tension with that is, well, you know, this is a once in a whatever opportunity to do something different. I don't know what that is. This is new territory for us. How do we even have a conversation about that? Do we bring a kind of a person that comes in and changes, everything to help facilitate that kind of thing? So that's what we, and again, on the line of the, do we have an opportunity to go to really use this, the fact that we have to do something in landfill in 2025 as a rallying cry or whatever to the community to say, this is our problem. Let's just come up with the craziest idea we've ever had, with the goal being of not having anything go to the landfill.
It was more focusing on the opportunity and not same old, and
Yeah.
how do we take advantage of that, but then also how do we vision it? Like, how do we get to that point? That's the craziest thing, like,
Yeah.
was stuff from getting to the landfill. Like, look from that approach.
And then we have talked about, let's envision a thought process that does not involve waste options.
Right.
But we want to keep them out of the conversation for a bit.
Right, because that's where we get mired down in
Yeah.
the psychology of investment.
I'm wondering, because this is something that came up quite a couple times when we were discussing 2 weeks ago or last week, whenever it was, looking at reducing overall waste as part of the strategy. And I think that's an important sort of frame or mindset for the conversation when we start talking about the size of the facility and the style and things. And I'm wondering if it's something along the lines of the strategy is forming a multidisciplinary group with a goal of zero waste, or looking to achieve a zero waste approach, because then that kind of sets the mindset
Yeah.
that then they're looking at everything else through that.
And then that
Different
can
filter.
input into whatever has to happen there.
Right. If that's our,
And it's almost like waste is a failure,
yeah.
you know?
And then we figure it out within that frame. And that might be imperfect. It might have to be adjusted again because of being an island and the options we have available to us, but.
And it's an opportunity, we're not saying this is, I guess the question is it worth us taking the time and energy, political, whatever, will, to have this conversation in the community versus just going right into RFP mode? And
Yes,
Yeah, the answer is yes,
I think that's
probably.
yes. Yeah.
I don't think we can go into RFP mode till the research is done,
Absolutely.
till we know what the options are. But you need an RFP to get those
No, what I
options.
was saying earlier before we came in, that we don't even go to the, I read a little email I should send around, a little tension between, so, but, no, we're way far away from RFP.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, how do we do that? You know, do we get educated as a group? Do we, do we have other groups? What do we charge them with? Is there somebody, I don't know, you know. I mean, there are people that can come in and talk to you about any subject that is, I don't know if they're called, not called game changers, but things, people that really shake things up and get you to think really crazy things.
Is there some kind of a 3-year plan to come up with ways that make sense for Nantucket to get to a zero waste goal? Kind of thing?
No? No, we haven't thought of that, we don't know.
But is that being?
But that could be
Yeah,
our
no,
broad
I mean, I'm
strategy.
trying to understand
Oh.
where the broad strategy fits into a 3-year plan, which is
Yeah.
well before the actual contract expiration.
Right.
But it could come up with ways that would make sense for Nantucket in terms of initiatives that
Okay.
would get us
Yeah.
towards zero
Okay.
waste.
Yeah.
So maybe by the
That's how,
end-
I'm just trying to piece it into a 3-year
So maybe
timeline.
at the end of 3 years, we will have a plan that generates zero waste on Nantucket. I mean, with
Has
some-
It has
Options.
certain initiatives
Yeah,
that
yeah.
would get
That'll come
towards
out of
that
it,
goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you define zero waste?
90%.
I don't know, I'm
It's
just,
90%.
Nothing goes to the landfill.
Yeah,
how do you measure
success?
It's so,
So
by
you can
the
answer.
book, yeah, by the book, zero waste is 90% diversion from landfill. So we'll have to be looking at it from what's being sent off island, where it goes once it's off island. And it looks at really, and this is valuable regardless of what we do in 2025, but all of these sort of newer technologies and waste solutions require better sorting and dealing with your compostables. And so that would be part of whether we're not dealing with it, it's not our landfill per se, although we do have things going into lined cells. So we can look at zero waste for us, but we, in theory, should also be looking at zero waste once it gets off island to wherever it's going. So 90% diversion from landfill is the accepted goal for zero waste.
Yeah, maybe there's a whole process of things that happen before it gets delivered to the landfill.
so is the 10% that gets diverted to landfills the nastiest, most worst stuff?
Yeah, it's the stuff that you
Because you're
cannot.
off.
Yeah.
Well, so it's the mercury and it's the fluorescent bulbs and it's all the crap you don't know what to do with.
It's
So we
exactly.
absolutely 100% don't want that diverted to our landfill.
Right.
We
right.
want that diverted to someone else's landfill.
But the idea is that even that last 10%, in theory, by the time you go through the whole process of getting to that, there's this last little 10%, it would be your bulky waste. Like when if we had our garbage bags and we have our recyclables and say we're pulling out our compostables, in theory, even coming out of the household, that last little 10% has nowhere else to go. Nobody has an ability to recycle or reuse or upcycle or whatever. And then that is
Batteries,
waste.
light bulbs.
Batteries wouldn't even be considered. That's not zero because those can be dealt with.
Mattresses,
Mattresses would be one.
things that you just can't.
So,
Yeah.
so let me bring us back to the point of what's the strategy, not
Yeah.
what's the
Yeah,
definition.
yeah.
Yep.
So I thought what Don said, like that. For 3 years, come up with a plan.
Can someone put that up on an easel for us?
Jason has better.
I can write it. You guys
Facilitator or
can.
something?
Janice.
So,
Do you want to write it? Yeah, here you go, Jim.
up here?
Jim's got it.
Yeah, either way. I'll go here.
Oh, geez, they're everywhere.
Are we still exploring and envisioning? No, I mean, I'm serious. I'm not, we still,
So
is
we can
that part
say
of the
envision, we
strategy?
just can't write it down.
Right.
Are we still envisioning? Well, I think
I don't
that
know.
we've kind of, I think that's the thing is, zero waste is one, it's an easier way, a measure of success, and it's something that we're not the first, so there's plenty of other places to look to. So I think we kind of envisioned that the goal would be to look at the redesign of the dump from a zero waste approach. We would take a zero waste approach to,
Could that simply be it? Zero waste approach?
yeah.
That's simply said, like,
Yeah, and I mean, regardless of even the dump, it's all these things, community initiatives that would go into place prior to getting to
and the
the.
education and everything
Yeah.
else, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do we need to have a multidiscipline faceted group in the line item for the strategy?
Yeah,
We
I
already
think,
got that as
'cause I think that
strategy.
becomes the strategies underneath it, yeah. The
Yeah,
the
you're
group that
right.
we're
Yeah.
together.
Scribe is to write down what you all want.
Yeah.
The scribe's not allowed to write down what they want. That's why I'm holding
You
the,
hold the
Yeah.
pen.
So.
waiting for someone to tell me, write this down.
We're trying to figure it out.
So
have the
Greg, what
power.
you were saying is that what we're trying to verbalize is the broad strategy, and then the strategies to achieve that, like form a multidisciplinary group, or what comes underneath.
That comes later,
Okay.
I think.
So it goes broad strategies, data and research, then specific strategies.
Right, so the broad strategy is the zero.
So is that that sounds like that's a definable term, zero. what do you-
Develop
Zero
zero
waste
waste
approach.
goals.
Zero waste approach, is that what zero waste?
I like, Don kind of got it, develop zero waste
Goals
goals.
for Nantucket, goals and initiatives for Nantucket.
Okay.
Over the-
May the scribe write that down.
I think so, I think before we forget it.
We can change our minds, I know.
That will be, I don't know if we need to add, that will be the basis for the development of the new, or the redesign of the dump. I don't know if that's
But
necessary.
those would be the later, we don't even know that until 3 years from now.
Yeah, exactly what that will look like.
Is it really develop or is it adopt zero waste principles?
I think we need to develop strategies that can actually be done on Nantucket.
And then maybe in 3 years
Because
we
they
adopt
have to
them.
be adapted
Yeah,
from.
yeah. So, but I suppose, I don't know if what you're saying, Matt, is that in 3 years we would adopt? So if we're looking at it in the 3 years, so over the 3 years, we're developing zero waste and goals initiatives with the aim to adopt by the end of 3 years. Yeah, no, I'm adding on.
No, tell me what to write.
No, I think that's good. I was just asking if you were looking for a more definitive, like.
Well, I'm
at
just
the-
saying, if you adopt the principles, then underneath becomes I'm thinking about it that way. You adopt the principles and underneath becomes the action. Sorting your waste, sorting at businesses, sorting at homes, buying the green buckets, green things and, figuring out how to pick everything up. All the things that places that do this do. How do we,
So we even talked about, why should we allow anyone to bring waste on Nantucket, things on Nantucket that would end up in the landfill? So we Stop and Shop wouldn't be allowed to bring anything here that had to go to the landfill.
Well, I think it's one of those where if you develop or adopt zero waste goals and initiatives, that's when everyone else then is forced to
Yeah,
figure it
right.
out.
Yeah.
Are we getting a little too bogged down in this?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that is our broad strategy.
All
Your
right.
goal is to complete a full report of options and definitive recommendations for a solid waste disposal policy, due by fall 2021. Your opportunities were that the contract is expiring, there's a public interest in the landfill, and there's a cultural shift on sustainability options. So the strategy is to address those opportunities. Does this address those opportunities?
I think if
Oh.
you could adopt.
I think we're refining it, that's why we brought back to this group. We decided that this group, I think
I think an opportunity like this doesn't exist except for waste options expiring. So I think
Okay.
Yeah.
this does fit that.
we've solidified the fact that this is an opportunity more so than we had at the last time.
We probably need to come back to this, but we're probably at an okay pause point because I guess the next step in the process is really seeing this strategy and all the strategies together for all the goals. And I think it'll it might come a little clearer once you look at it from
Yeah.
what we have, in terms of all the information put together for the environment, strategic area.
We can edit this
And
as we
yes,
go.
we're gonna
Yeah.
have to
This is set in stone.
definitely wanna bounce that in here, but I think you're at a good point.
Because you're right, the critical success factors would be education, communication, creating an assessment, the buy-in. That would take 3 years to get to that point before we can adopt anything, I think.
Great.
I mean, I understand this much more than in the last meeting where we were trying to figure it out, so I think this is better.
They hashed it out. They hashed it out.
And a big one on all this, which we're not very good at, is enforcement. You know, like, how are we gonna enforce it? I mean, it all sounds well and good, we've done this previously.
Well, I
Not this
think-
exact thing, but we've done things leading to this that don't get enforced.
Well,
So,
enforcement's a whole issue throughout town government.
understood, but I think we have to make it, we have to put it top and center
I'm agreeing,
when we
but it's
discuss
a-
this.
I mean, it's gonna be a part of the discussion, yeah.
I do think, again, and this is sort of in keeping with the straws and the conversations we've had about 1990s and the straws and enforcement and banning, is that I think that the general feeling all over the world really is one where zero waste principles are becoming more common. So I think the enforcement will be, we'll have to do it, but it'll be easier because people are thinking about it and already moving that way.
All right, we're gonna move on to the
All right.
next portion of the agenda today, and this is moving us some work that Chuck's been doing primarily, and it's gonna show you how much work you've already accomplished.
So yeah, now we're definitely in the weeds here, but this is gonna kind of step us back to about 10,000 feet. And Janet and I have put together a draft document for review, which essentially takes the information for the 3 strategic areas, the 6 goals, and puts them all into one document. And it's essentially transcribing the information from the workshop notes into one document. So it gives you a holistic view of what's been happening over the last 10 months of the strategic planning effort. So what I wanted to do was to hand out a copy and just kind of do a quick walkthrough, 7 pages. And then leave it to you 15 minutes to review individually or maybe in pairs. Kind of go through it, read it, digest it, and then come back as a larger group to have a conversation about the content and what you see as possible changes, edits, things like that. And then that will flow into the next items on the agenda as well in terms of putting together the May presentation, the data research needs, which is really the next part in this whole strategic planning process, and then discussion of maybe a presentation with department head, staff, boards, things like that. So let's go ahead and hand this out. And this is by no means, cast in stone. I thought we were probably at a point of needing to try to get something all on one sheet of paper so we could at least review it and see what it looks like as it's coming together. And the first page is more or less some summary information, the elements of the plan. This came from the February workshop in terms of what was agreed to try to do as a group. And also the 3 strategic areas, the housing, the transportation, and environment. Nice graphic there that shows where we're going to be trying to build the information as we go through the process.
The transportation are all upside down.
Yes.
It's our job to make it right.
And I'm glad you're catching that.
I didn't
because,
notice
yeah,
that.
that drives me crazy, but when Janice sent us the graphic, it's all one image and I can't twist it. But we'll fix that. And we can come up with, there's certainly a lot that can be done in terms of illustrations, kind of making it eye candy. So I essentially go through the things follow the order as shown on the front page there, the housing. And for each one of the strategic areas, identified were the desired conditions or aspirations as identified by the board. And I guess I don't need to read these through, but those are the items that were captured on the worksheet notes, in addition to critical success factors. And then from that were the 3 goals that were identified for housing. And for each of those goals, the opportunities, threats, and broad strategies. And then below that are the data and research needs, which is the next part in the process, followed by specific strategies, action steps, and then monitoring process. And that'll be true for all the goals. In housing, there were 3 goals identified. Environment, 2 which were consolidated into 1, and hence under broad strategies, our recent discussion here is something that would be plugged in here. And the last 2 pages are transportation.
I like the look at strategic plan every year to refresh in May. That's-
Yeah. So I call this a roadmap in the sense that it's a working document. You know, as we go through the different parts in the process, we'll just continue adding to it. But these are the major milestones we're going to try to track to. And I guess my impressions is that, you know, there's a lot of work to this stuff. A lot of excellent work that's been put together, captured. Now it's just continuing the process, review it, refine it. And one of the most immediate goals we should have is what's this May presentation going to look like? And what will be success for that presentation? And I think you've definitely got the content here. It's more of refining it and packaging it and having some of those talking points ready.
How do you explain it? How do you synthesize and explain it in a way that someone who's not been doing this for 8 months like we have, understand it, understand why we're doing it, and the whole process, and get people on board?
Yeah.
That'll be fun to figure out.
So this was helpful for me because, you know, the workshops were so intense, so, you know, deeply focused that kind of stepping back and seeing it makes a lot of sense. And hopefully you see it the same way.
Nicely done.
Yeah, no, this is great.
So,
It's nice to see it all.
It's your work. It's,
But you captured it though, and made sense of it.
yeah, well, thank you for that. So why don't we go ahead and take 15 minutes, let you really read it. It's 7 pages, so hopefully it's gonna, you know, give you enough time to do that. Some conversation, if you want to talk in small groups, it's fine, but then come back as a larger group and share some of those thoughts and ideas. I understand you're really seeing it now for the first time, so go ahead and take your time to take a look at it.
We're not really editing, right? We're more looking for words, not like formatting.
Well, I would say if there's something that needs to be clarified,
Yeah.
and again, these are almost the same words that were in the workshop notes, so there's kind
We're not
of,
like correcting things, like,
don't wordsmith, but if you need to add something to maybe clarify.
I mean, like, never mind.
You can't help yourself.
Are you seeing some typos?
You want my red pen?
Yes.
I'm gonna
No.
strain.
Yeah, again, try to focus at the higher level, because this will get polished.
Thank you.
Smart, smart.
I'm not being tested on it, am I?
Oh, yeah.
What are people doing time-wise?
You good?
I need like a couple minutes.
Can't stop looking at the typos.
I know. I do.
Put your red pen away.
No, we're ahead of schedule, so don't rush. We're fine.
You can read it during town meeting.
I'm gonna read the packet for Thursday. I'm gonna read the packet for Thursday. That's my goal.
Yeah.
Is it
And to
achievable?
not talk.
Yeah, exactly.
If at all possible.
Never bring water bottles.
I know I have more. I was gonna bring those. They've been sitting in my closet now. I kept meaning to bring back to you.
I put mine in the dishwasher and it melted.
The community sailing one?
Oh, no.
I mean, it didn't like fully melt, but it
But
got all
it got-
misshapen.
I put mine in there. Huh.
That's funny.
It's a matter of time.
The community sailing water bottles that we had.
I had mine ready to go. I used it this morning on my stroller walk.
Nice. Like, I can get you another one done. I happen to know
Did you drink the same thing as Eloise?
what supply is.
Ever put in the
Yeah.
dishwasher.
I did taste it once. It's not the best.
Yeah.
Not the grossest. How's campaign going? Did you do the dump?
Chuck, I thought this was I thought you were referencing an Instagram handle you had.
Oh, yeah,
Hashtag facilitated by Chuck. I was like, wow. He's got his own Instagram handle.
Facilitated by Chuck.
Yeah.
Did you start something, Jay?
Am I?
Yes.
Copy at the top.
I don't think he is either,
It's
so.
amazing what hashtags have done to
Oh, I
anything.
know, it's just, yeah, completely changed our.
Crystal Conservancy is
We did a lot of dump. Standing, waving. Me and Richard
Yeah.
were there mostly.
Yeah.
It was cold,
It
man.
was cool. And Richard was,
Man, that was cold.
I have to hold at you.
But just
Yeah.
one, I only went one day.
Richard would be there from 8 to
Yeah.
1 every
He
day.
brought a chair with him. I mean, he really had it figured out. It was cool.
I felt like people got annoyed.
They'll look you in the eye.
Don't bring politics to me. Having a nice Sunday.
Everyone in and out.
I thought about standing out there on Sunday just to let people know there's a town meeting. I almost did it for stand at Stop and Shop and just say town meeting Tuesday night, just a reminder.
Okay.
Libby's changed all of our goals.
So maybe over the next 15, 20 minutes, I'd like to have a discussion. First starting with just any general comments. And then we step through page by page for specific comments or changes, corrections. And then we'll blend our way into the third item on the agenda is really focusing on moving toward the presentation in May. That's probably our first real immediate deliverable in terms of what was planned for the process. So,
One question I had was the data and research, the next step, is that's meant to include when we go to different department heads and have them. I think one that I'm just interested to hear from department heads in Tucker is the housing one with 100 units and thinking about if that's achievable and if that's part of the next
So
phase.
I think one of the things we do want to talk about is maybe the next meeting is considering bringing in the department heads and others selected to, review it and work with the board to refine it or give additional input, that kind of thing. We probably want to talk about the sequencing of maybe getting those reviews done maybe before the May presentation. And from a marketing perspective, that probably makes sense because the more you can get discovered up front, the more eyes to review it and approve it, I think it'll just make a better product and probably turn it open for public consumption. So.
That was the first comment I had, was when do we start the buy-in process and start sharing it with all the stakeholders?
So,
When does that fit in?
So, yeah, and again, what's your pleasure with that? I think you're definitely at the point of having something where you can do that.
I think we're ready, or close to it.
And again, that's your decision, but there's at least, I think, enough information here for talking points. And of course, those will have to be, clarified and polished some. But I think you've at least got the skeleton, so to speak, for the outline of, making that presentation.
I think one thing we have to be careful of is the people that we're talking to, they look at it the way they look at it. And so somehow we have to be able to widen the vision. And I'll use an example of just Ann Cutsby. I sent her some stuff this weekend on what do you call it? Land trusts. And there's two-phase land trust and there's a way to do it and everything else. And I get back, oh, we can't do that because of whatever. Maybe if we had a bunch of money coming in, we could do that. And I'm looking, saying, well, why can't you do that? If you've given the land and we say it has to be, and it has to be 80%. Well, it doesn't all have to be 80%. It can be, so, but all of a sudden the mind is closed to what is possible. And I'm not picking on Ann, I think she's good, but however we do it, we have to make sure that the meetings have enough of a, there's enough, we can broaden everybody enough so that good ideas come out. Their ideas or other ideas. So, I don't know how to do that, but.
I think it would show good leadership if we go into it with a mindset of they didn't have this brainstorming process for 8 months. Like they're in it, right? And it's hard to do this. So I think if we understand it, we're going to get some of that from some of the staff, or department heads, or nonprofits,
Right.
and kind of be patient with them. Because if you see it, right, if all I did was housing and I saw this, I would just start picking through it at first, right?
Yeah.
I'm not in a mindset of being open-minded and taking it all in.
So some of this is how you're going to tell the story.
Right.
And how you're
That's what I was
going
gonna
to
say.
engage,
Yeah.
the people as you lay this information out. Because there is a thought process that needs to be conveyed just to help frame it and set the context. And I think you're at an important part of needing to decide, well, who's going to do the messaging? Are we going to, try to do it, one person covers a particular area, or are you going to try to have several people that talk to it? Those are the kinds of decisions we're going to have to, come to as we get closer to wanting to, roll this out.
I think it's real important to be clear because people are going to look at this and say, my most important project is not on here.
Right,
Or,
exactly.
But they're going to see through their lens. Also, so we have to say things like, this is our plan, we want you to look at this specific area and give us specific feedback. Or, this is a work in progress and we're looking for anybody comment. Don't
Limit yourselves.
Don't limit yourself to your area. Think of yourself as a citizen. So those are all the things, whatever we come up with, I think it's important that we have something like that. I'm not judging one way.
And some of that you'll put in the executive summary. So you can kind of set the stage before you really go into some of these finer details. But no, we're at that point.
I think we need to be clear that this plan doesn't drop any current things.
Right.
Like, I think that the environment going towards waste and not being like coastal resiliency is going to be a concern for some people. And I just want to make sure that it's clear that that's not dropping that because that's already underway.
Sewer projects.
Like I think we are going to have to do some summarizing of these initiatives that are already in progress are not being dropped.
Yes.
Maybe a description of how we got to these.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
boiling down
Because that
those
was one of
words.
our criteria, well, that's
Yeah.
underway, so.
Yeah, how many times do we have that in our groups where we would say, oh, this, I'm like, well, we're already doing it, so mark it off.
And I think mentioning even how the first day we sat down and were asked, you come back to Nantucket and everything went as planned in 5 years and this is what it looked like. I think helping people understand that that's where we started from and then. I also think it sounds like it would be very important to make sure we have these discussions as a group with the department heads because I think, Matt, what you're talking about is we can ask questions and kind of meet in the middle if we're, rather than just having it be emailed back and forth.
Exactly, it should be meetings, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Can I mention two things? Number one, are we gonna work in a way to somehow address the stuff that's already underway? Because if we have a real strategic plan, like how are we gonna sort of acknowledge that we do have kind of biggish things underway already? So I don't know how to get at that, but that's something to think about. And then with regard to the department heads, I think Chuck and Janet and Greg and I need to have a conversation on our own about that, because I think we need to meet with them ourselves before we turn you loose on them. And
Or maybe it should be joint, maybe it should be you guys and
well, I
a couple
think
people.
at some, I think we're gonna do it first, and then we're gonna maybe have a joint. And I'm not even sure right now if it's better to have all of them in or sort of group them by the particular goal, because all of them in is gonna be a lot of time.
I would group them by the
People, and
goals.
they're not all, it's good for them to hear it, but on the other hand, there's gonna be some people who this doesn't really affect them right away. But we're also gonna get, because they haven't sat through every session, there are going to be a range of, I won't name names, but I can see a couple people who are gonna wanna say, oh, this is so great, and we should do all this other stuff too, not just the sidewalks, we should have all these other things. And then there's gonna be people who say, how am I gonna do all this? I'm already doing A through Z now. So it's gonna be my job on my end to rein that in a bit and, work with it.
Yeah, that's gonna be part of the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but-
It's
but
gonna take time.
and some people are gonna be very, concerned is not the right word, worried
Stubborn.
about this. How am I gonna get this done? I don't have the money, I don't have the.
Give me more staff, give me
Yeah,
more money.
I mean, and I am in that a little bit, thinking it through myself.
Yep.
But I've been through this already, and I know that we're all kind of in that. We haven't figured that out yet. So it's a dynamic process as we go on to figure those things out, but as long as the board remains supportive of these things, and they need to understand. So just one last thing about that. If they start saying things like, well, we've also talked about, I don't know, some other goal that isn't on here at all, are we still doing that?
Well, I have that topic. The first thing I wrote was we're missing fiscal stuff. I think that the economy looks like there's gonna be a slowdown. We're heading into a slowdown, and I think that fiscal issues should always be at the forefront. And I don't feel, after the last round of negotiations, that they really are. And I don't feel that we are adopting the best practices. We have a great finance department now, but we need to adopt best practices on some of those issues. And I think, and if we don't, I think it's gonna really bite us again. And so that, so anyway, that's one of the things that I look at this thing and think we're missing. And I know it came up, but it didn't make it to the top of the pile. So, and I thought, can we do it through policies? Can we, or bike paths, can we say town policy, spend more on alternatives than roads and parking? Just make a blanket policy at some point, or, can we say housing, human services, and maintenance and repair should increase at the same amount as employee wages and benefits every year? Are there policies like that we can place, there's somewhat are constraints, but some are directional?
So putting a fiscal element into each of the,
I'm not sure in these, I just think it's such a big issue, I think it deserves its own place, but it doesn't matter if the administration is saying, hey, we're gonna adopt community compact best practices on human resources over the next 3 years, and we're gonna, have goals, and, we're gonna have the wage and study stuff done, and we're gonna be ready, then I don't need it written on a piece of paper. But I do think if we don't do it, we're gonna be, a lot of this isn't gonna get done because the money's not gonna be there. It's gonna be taken for something else. And it kind of goes into what Libby's saying, when people will go, I can't do that, pay us all more, a little more, and maybe we can do it. We're gonna have, that's gonna be the answer. The answer's gonna be pay us more.
Well, I'm not even thinking of pay us more, I'm thinking more of, I don't have the resources to do this. I need another 10 positions, or 1 position, or I need this special piece of equipment, or whatever. And at the same time, I'm thinking that that's how our budget is going to develop. So if, we all agree we need, I'm making this up, totally, 3 more positions to work on zero waste landfill, then we're gonna put that in an upcoming budget, and that might mean, if we can't locate some new revenue, reducing something somewhere else to fit it in with an existing revenue. Maybe there's some new revenue stream to
Well, the
those are all-
rental tax will be a new revenue stream.
Yeah, which is, yes, so.
It's significant, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just, it's gonna take a town meeting vote and figuring it out, so, and I don't, I'm just saying that some things we're gonna have to figure out, but in the budget. I'm thinking more things like, those things that you just mentioned, Matt, I sort of feel like are kind of more administrative-ish than strategic, although they do have strategic elements to them with respect to getting public support and
Public
things like
support
that.
and staff support on some of it, yeah.
So I think those will just be part of the narrative that you're gonna have to weave into this.
Okay.
And I think we wanna capture that because there's gonna have to be a place for that somewhere in the plan and executive summary to touch on those key areas. They're almost environmental constraints or, things that have to be worked with and addressed and hopefully improved.
So
over
is our
time.
next step to go through this?
That's what I would propose. If you think that thered be help, value with that. Alternately, I can send it to you electronically and you could, mark it up and we can exchange it, comments that way. We are going to want to try to get all the information and any suggested changes and anything that, needs further discussion, kind of put into one package, one document, so we can assemble.
Okay,
collective
so
thoughts.
my things are more, I do have a few minor typos here and there, and my things probably are more clarifying wording for some stuff than anything substantive. So between you two, are you gonna, if you send this in a way that we can mark it up, redline it, will we send it back to you and then somehow you'll have to figure out a way to get it to everybody?
So with Microsoft Word, you can combine all the comments and track changes into
Yeah.
one master,
Do we have enough
document.
time to go around the room?
But I was also gonna say, we probably have, 10 minutes
Okay.
in the schedule where we could go page by page and at least capture the major
Yeah, that's fine.
elements.
If somebody has a question, we may have other stuff.
Yeah, no, and I think there's value to having that dialogue as we go through it. So the first page is more or less just some background information, not necessarily meant to be published, but I do like the graphic. And the graphic does identify all the major items that we're planning to put together for the strategic plan, including, implementation timeline, metrics evaluation, and communication plan.
So at some point, will the graphic, this is what you're talking about, John?
Yeah.
Have the actual goals, strategies?
We could, but that's what I'm trying to do on each of the individual pages. This is just a visual that, all right, what are the areas and what are the major pieces for the areas?
To me, it's a little busy to have the same things, all that, because I would just put that in some kind of narrative. We did these
Yeah.
things for every goal.
You could probably do that, yeah.
just
So-
have one and then have
Yeah.
the 3 pictures. Yeah, same thing, because I read through each one to make sure they're all the same.
Yeah, and what, yeah.
So anybody that has ideas on graphics or visuals, yeah, please, jump in because, I think that just helps improve the end product. But that's just a starting point there. So page 2, under housing.
Okay, I'll refrain from typo types of things.
Well, you can send those to me, you know.
Okay, I'll do that later. Couple things. Diversity of stock under desired conditions at the very top. Do we mean, like size, like 1 bedroom, 4 bedroom, rental versus housing? Is that what we mean by that?
Anything you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Means all that, yes.
Okay, and HDC approved, do we mean more like code compliant? Because there's more than just HDC that might, don't we want things to be safe and stuff?
Code compliance, if you're, are these, I mean,
Or does that mean appropriate aesthetics?
I'm just thinking like overcrowding. Like, do they have the appropriate egresses and
Yeah.
stuff like that?
I'm thinking that had to do with having the right look for Nantucket was what that one was getting at.
I think you're right now. I mean, it's all gonna have to be code compliant.
So is that just sort of
I
understood?
think we talked about the Nantucket look somewhere. Like versus, yeah.
And HDC being one of the boards that we need to have buy-in from so that we're not up against them with every.
I mean, I think that was sort of in reference to like 6FG and how it changed during its HDC review.
Seasonal workforce needs met, is that town or everybody?
I think it was everybody.
Everybody.
Okay.
So every time I see lead housing specialist, I think of lead housing specialist, and that's only because I have a background in lead poisoning in homes, so.
Yeah.
How you have to, so that's just me.
Maybe we don't need to.
Just get rid of that, just put housing specialist, yeah.
Housing specialist.
That brings me back to my Bronx days.
Can I ask a question? I'm surprised under desired conditions you don't have energy efficient. One thing that we keep hearing in our office is all these rental units that are coming online, all of electric heat, and people are getting a
Listen, Dylan.
affordable $2,000 a month rental with electric heat, which costs $800 a month.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great point, and that's tying them together. Energy
And I know it
efficient.
increased costs, but in the end run, if you're
I
trying
have
to
no
provide
idea.
affordable housing
So
for
that's how
people,
they get
Sachems.
around.
it becomes
Sachems.
not affordable if they can't afford the
Yeah.
utilities.
Sachems are having trouble with the units that they put into the
So
housing.
is in Richmond.
Richmond is
This
different.
one's as electric.
Well, there's
Yeah,
electric,
good catch, Erica.
There's-
Because, you know, and
there's
yeah,
electric that's
if you
good.
show it to more people,
Yeah,
you're just
okay.
gonna, yeah,
Yeah.
get these items for
Interject.
discussion.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So,
Well, and I think there's that Green Star, so Hall Keen has Green Star, theirs are supposed to be Green Star rated. I don't think the others are, so I don't, yeah, I think capturing that in a way, somehow.
Personally, I
I'm
think
fine.
if we're gonna
Funny, we
do
thought
Green Star, I think there's.
Lead housing, but not LEED.
Yeah.
Those are costly, so they may be idealistic, ideal, but not.
There's a way to be energy efficient without being
Green
green.
Star.
So in terms of desires, yeah, I think that's,
Okay,
that
that's
definitely is a.
Yeah, you could do an entire, we just did Sheila's shop is all electric with mini splits and electric hot water, and it's cheap to run. So what's happened is they're just buying the wrong units, they're not buying, they're not doing the right thing, and they're not insulating it well enough probably, and, you know,
All right, so
anyway.
critical success factors. Looks okay.
Yep.
And these again apply to all 3
Take out
goals.
the lead.
What is
Yeah.
Union D work card?
Yeah, I underlined that with a question mark, I don't know.
Union D work card?
So that came directly off the workshop notes,
Okay.
so maybe.
I would just strike
Typo.
Or
Nobody knows what it
union
means. We take
So-
it
so
off.
what this- yeah.
Negotiations.
I think we had a discussion about union having negotiated units.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
but that'll all just be part of
All right, so goal number 1.
There's a typo.
Yeah.
Unites. Oh, I was reading it unites.
I kept that one to myself. There's another one,
Oh, yeah.
a bad one.
So, solve town employer housing, I don't know what legality and preference means, do we need, do we need those in there too?
I think that was, maybe legality and preference are just inherent in solve the employee, because we're gonna have to solve those anyway.
Yeah.
So maybe, I would be fine taking that out, because we're gonna.
I don't know, I mean, if it means something that's important, we should keep it in.
Well,
just
I
don't know what it
think it
means.
just means there were some issues about, how you.
Oh, can we?
Whether a
create
town can do it,
preference
yeah.
For
Yeah.
town-owned.
Can they do just themselves or just, yeah.
Employee preference, can we do
Yeah.
employee preference? It's
But-
it's the legality of preference.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Employee preference.
All right.
And that might go under threats if we wanted to add it under, you know, existing existing laws or something that,
We have that as a threat for number two.
yeah, okay.
So we've got about 5 minutes left, so
Okay.
we can try to step through this.
I'm concerned under opportunities with just the wording of the secondary or tertiary dwellings becoming affordable only. I think that sounds very definitive,
Yeah.
and I'm a little bit worried that would,
And it's like throwing the gauntlet down. and it's a
so,
little-
send it, make
Mhm.
people concerned, and more like explore options in
Yeah.
regard to making those affordable incentives.
Yeah.
Make more affordable or something like that.
Explore incentives to make those
Yeah.
affordable or something like
Yeah.
that.
Oh, good point. Mhm.
I don't mind throwing the gauntlet down a little bit because I think the theory now of just increased supply and everything will be fine, that hasn't worked. So, but, you know,
Is it, I could see that being captured in a strategy, so the opportunity is a little more, we have an opportunity to look at the secondary and tertiary dwellings, and the strategy would be,
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
but I
that's
just
kind of what
yeah.
I was
That's
just seeing it through the lens of how we communicate this. Do we want that? If we do, fine.
I think that I think it's a good
worth
discussion to have.
exploring.
Yeah.
I think even up front, it's a good discussion to have. Can we solve this? But it's merely increasing supply. It's very clear we can't. So what else do we have to do? Or we can't and have an island we want to live on. You know, what do we want to do? So, anyway,
So if we're gonna get through this
Yeah.
in 2 minutes now?
yeah.
So, yeah, we can just, again, anything that wants to come up for kind of group consumption at this point, but I will send it out electronically.
Okay.
And of course, this is a living document, so it's going to evolve and change and get better over time.
There's some benefit in our talking about this.
Yeah, so I think we,
Are there any big things that anyone has on any of the other pages?
yeah.
Are there any
Just remember,
major?
if Chuck sends it out to you, please don't send it back replying to all, send it
Yeah.
individually.
Are there any big ones that anyone
Yeah,
sees
because-
in the next 4 pages?
So we'll have a, discussion at the end of this meeting in terms of figuring that out.
the only thing I noticed was just that under transportation, we had prep for town meeting under broad strategy, which was,
That's one thing I made a note on too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I did have one more thing. And under the different intermodal, carpool and taxi should be included.
Desired conditions, top.
Under intermodal, in the parentheses.
Right.
Yeah, yes, in desired conditions.
Where's that?
It's under desired conditions.
All the examples.
The
For
shuttle,
transportation.
bikes, buses, sidewalks, ride shares,
Yeah.
carpool and taxi should be in there too.
page 6.
I'm sorry, you said what should be on, Tom?
Carpool and taxi.
So it's noon now, so we've got an hour left, right? And so let's take a step back from content and talk about process. So we were able to distribute the document, take a quick look at it, make some initial comments. And as part of the process going forward, it's a matter of now needing to try to decide, well, what are the next steps? And involving additional groups, perhaps, to review it, and/or preparing for the May presentation. Or, going back and maybe refining this before, considering, going further with it. What are your thoughts on what would be the logical next steps at this point?
I think it's really important to get the input from the department heads if you have to go to them first. And I think we have to have that. We have to have our goals as achievable as possible, because I think if we go in May, and if the department heads don't think they're achievable and people read it and say we can't do that, then I think we're set very far back in the public perception. So I feel like getting the feedback is,
Getting feedback now.
yeah. And, I think just to clarify, maybe it doesn't need to be said, but I feel like with the department heads, I'm coming at it from the approach that these are all, we're not trying to shove them down their throats. We're going to look at it from the big picture, but there really needs to be assessed based on achievability, with the financial side being a big part of that. So, just making sure that, to me, these goals are meant to be flexible and tweaked. These aren't our final goals. I don't know if that's kind of everyone else's approach with these, but.
This is where I got a little lost trying to crosswalk this to my experience, but in a company, a board would not likely get as involved in the level that we're getting at. They might say things like, we want you guys to work on housing, transportation, environment. And then the management team goes off, has a series of strategic planning workshops, comes up with a plan, nice presenting laws, whatever, and then presents that to the board. So, the point is that it's such a critical stage to get not only the buy-in, but the involvement and input from that group. So I think whatever we need to do, I think we should.
Well, that sounds like one of the next steps is having that meeting and reviewing it with them.
I think we have to be careful about what we want to say.
So that's going to lead to some preparation planning before that meeting, and probably a discussion of talking points and then who's going to be presenting it to the department heads.
In one sense, maybe it needs to start with Libby. One way to do it, we had Libby and her team, present this to the team.
Yeah.
This is what the board's been working on.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, this is our chance to, even you could really come direct. This is great. This is our opportunity to influence the board. And I don't know. That's one. Or you could
Want Libby to rock.
or you could bring them in totally on. Hey, I think that there's if I were doing it, I want to control. So,
Yes, exactly.
So this is an interesting discussion, at least what I'm picking up on, is that very early on, Janice was clear, this is the board's strategic plan. And I kind of go back to that only as a reference point. If we're deciding to go somewhere, different, I'm fine with that, but I just want to be clear, how that messaging will take place.
I can't help it, just my CEO hat.
Yeah, no, and I get where you're coming from completely.
Take it off.
So it's just the whole ownership thing, right? And so certainly, Janet, myself, Libby, we can engage the department heads, but I think there's a piece
Forget what I just said.
That we might want to.
But I think what you said is valuable. I think that one of the next steps should be me meeting with it, and my team, Greg and I, and you two, meeting with the department heads to explain, again, we've been letting them know that the board is working on strategic plan. They certainly know that. But I think we want to say, here's the areas we've talked about, we've narrowed it all down, here's what the board's strategic plan is. They can still have their own individual strategic plans. That's totally fine. This isn't replacing any of that. But these are bigger picture things that is going to require the work of most or many of the department heads to move this along. So they're going to need to think about how to work it into their program And that might mean, like we've talked about here with town administration things. Yeah, that might mean if somebody, some citizen or someone comes in with some great new big idea, this will enable us to say, we're working on these things right now. And when we do our annual review of strategic planning, we'll bring your thing in. But right now, we're not focusing on that. So I'm, one of the benefits for me of this is exactly that, to be able to focus more on. So anyway, I think the next step is that we have a department head meeting on Monday, so we can review this there. And I don't know we may need some sort of more individual groups with some of the departments that are gonna be more involved than others.
I think we should strategize them
Yeah, so we four need to have a little bit of a meeting
before Monday, yeah. And I'm not sure you want to give them this whole piece. You might just want to give them the goals and the strategies that we've come up with, an even more condensed version, and maybe
Yeah.
some kind of introduction about what we've done. I would keep it to one page if possible, page and a half for them to look at, and then say, we're gonna have these other conversations.
Yeah.
We're gonna go deeper, and that,
Yeah.
they'll be part of this process too.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me, Janet, because if you, department head gets this, it could be a little overwhelming, and it starts going on, everybody gets into the weeds.
Right,
Is Monday your cabinet meeting, is that what you're saying?
yeah,
If you're talking about the process of why we're doing this, trying to focus the board and have strong leadership, and, you're still gonna do your stuff, and
Yeah.
they're not shoving this, get into just to go like, oh, okay, I get it.
yeah,
I think that'll be really important
yeah.
for academy, and then you guys go into your separate, housing and.
But
I'm-
I agree. The issue I see is, let's for argument's sake say, you can still have your own goals, but here are these other goals. You can have your other ones, but what happens when there's a conflict? For argument's sake, say there's a bunch of takings that need to happen for the, road article, and geez, we don't have time to do takings because we're doing yard sale. At some point, we have to find a way to navigate the priorities? Because we may make time by putting some other stuff to a lower priority, and I think,
That, I think, some of that rests in the hands of the board.
Right, because this is focusing us, we'll stay on top of it, and it'll happen versus us just getting thrown.
Yeah, right.
Right, I think it's the whole point of this. I think we will stay on top of it. I know what you're getting
Using
at.
that example, you say, okay, we can say no more yard sales, and we're not gonna say that. No more yard sales until you do these things. It's our agenda.
well, that's an example because Bobby did say that, and they just kept coming, and then they came worse. So I'm just.
Well, but that's where it's a
Very
board,
hypothetical. I'm
yeah.
saying, the chairman, the chairman controls the agenda, you decide what's on there. If something is put on, somebody wants something on there that dilutes our ability to this strategic plan, then you don't put it on.
Because one of the things I heard in one of the early sessions was there's too much transactional activity at your board meetings, and this should really be helping you drive your agenda and the discussions, and what comes for some of those transactions is, well, it should drive regular business, and it should drive a thought process that as you move forward. And that's why it's a great tool to
Right, but then when you, and I hate to keep at this, but then when you don't put on certain things, there's expectations that have been created. Let's use yard sales because it's a good example. There's expectations that have been created, the people have come in, they've hired lawyers, the lawyers have done all that
When
work.
happened another time, we said, as of now, there's no more of these things. Even though, we did that with the banners. We said, there's now a moratorium. Don't even start to work on the banners because we're not going to take these up for expert. So there's ways to do that.
We've also talked about having a strictly transactional meeting once a month.
I was just gonna say that. Could do it quarterly, could do it.
Yeah, but it's not just our meeting, it's all the stuff, it's all the Erica's time, it's all the time in the other offices that are going into some things rather than other things. So some of this isn't the board we can't direct, other departments to do things. We can direct Libby to direct the departments that are under us, but so I'm just saying, like, somehow I'm just trying to say, I think we have to realize how do we get the buy-in in those situations? It's not going to be as simple, I don't think.
I also think this is a big shift in the way we've been doing things, so it's going to be messy at the start. And I think that,
There's going to be a bunch of stuff that we should have worried about that we haven't thought of yet, so.
So probably to wrap up this part of the agenda, next steps, I'll send this out electronically. Feel free to, send back track changes and I'll consolidate those and we'll have a copy before the next meeting. I guess we'll be working with Libby then for Monday's cabinet meeting in terms of assembling a
Shorter version.
one-pager, maybe a little longer.
Maybe if we can figure it out, schedule them later, we'll
Yeah.
figure out, we'll set it
Yeah.
after this.
And so then we'll have that feedback for the next meeting as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So do we want to bring, do we wait until your meeting Monday, or do we want to schedule, when we get to our schedule, do we want to think about having that come to our next meeting?
That's,
a question.
that's at the end, yeah, I was thinking that our next meeting, which is in 3 weeks, there could be, and we were thinking also of planning board, maybe the capital committee and finance committee to see this presentation as a way to buy it in, but I do think you want your staff on board, and probably, maybe some conversations with planning board, I'm not quite sure how that all works, but that's something we should talk about in the strategy. But the idea was we would
We need
spend
to
that
figure
next
that one
meeting.
out. That's gonna be a big one. That's a whole housing. And the various housing groups that are at each other's throats half the time. How do we get, that's gonna be a big part of it.
But we were thinking that that next meeting would be a presentation to a group of people that you're gonna wanna be working with on this, before we got too much further in the development of it.
We may have to have more than one of those.
Yeah.
Because we can't have
Just
a
housing.
productive meeting with 30 people. And we might want to,
I think starting with the department heads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could start
We're going to learn
with
from that process and we'll decide.
Yeah,
And maybe planning's its own separate one, because
There's a lot.
they
I think
cover
it's its own separate.
they umbrella almost everything.
Yeah.
And we're
And
going to
then-
hear from planning in the department head group too.
Yeah.
So that might be a way to get indications about what the planning folks might.
And FinCom, Capcom might be, that could be together. Oh, you think separate?
If you get them all in,
It's a big
it's a
group.
big group.
I doubt we'll get them all in, but I'm fine with more meetings.
so we'll come back to the May presentation at our next meeting too, or after we've had some talk here. It sounds like it's gonna be a little later in May than what we were thinking.
I think,
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
31st, 30th, no.
Any other thoughts on this part right now before we move into the next work part of this? So the next part of today's session is to start identifying the data and the research that we need to implement each strategy. And I thought we'd break up into the work groups that had formed those strategies and create a list of what those data and research needs are, and then we'll report out to the big group. Following that, we'll start collecting some of that. Some of that might be collected by staff, some of it might be collected by you all, and then we'll, in between now and the next meeting, we'll figure out a way to circulate it and figure out what we're gonna do with all the data and research that we're gonna collect. So, I think the housing group was it you two?
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah,
I was
okay.
lettuce, I was BLT. Or is that a separate group?
I think we're doing separate now.
I really don't remember.
I think it was like, are you talking about like Rita and Jim who worked on transportation? I mean, not environment.
You did environment,
Yeah.
right?
And then we did transportation.
What did,
I'm trying to think though.
Matt and
I did-
Jason work on
I
something?
did
Right.
environment too.
Was it housing?
I think so, yep.
Yeah.
We've all touched a little
You know what, I
bit.
think it was. We did housing, you and,
Great.
you and.
We did transportation.
Transportation, and then you two did.
Oh, and then I joined housing.
Then I joined house and I joined
Oh, yeah, we
environment.
needed help.
We needed help. He came in
What
and
did
straightened
Matt
them
do?
We're
out.
so quick.
Matt did
It was
housing.
so easy.
Okay. So we'll give you 20 minutes, take us to 12:30,
I'll
I'll look at
come over
that.
there because I want to touch with his computer.
Okay,
So we have
you and
three,
Rita are gonna talk about.
You had
environment.
strategies under your goals, and we're looking to figure out what the research and data needs are in order to implement your
three
strategies.
school, okay.
Right here with John.
Yeah.
What are you guys talking about? Transportation?
One night down there.
And we're gonna need a handwritten list of those data and research needs.
I Alrighty, so, goal number, watch our fish number one.
So what do we-
The
what
parking
do we already
management
have?
space system, okay. So, as a matter of fact, we have an RFP that I just, Mike Burns really just finished yesterday that I
See, I'm not so sure that, I'm not so sure that we,
Data
off the
research
top of our
is-
head,
we are
I don't think it's
hiring
possible to
a-
do this off the top of your head.
Hopefully, if the board approves.
Personally, you know,
Remain paying for a school
brainstorm.
redesigned,
Yeah, I mean, we may not.
and they're
talk
paying
everything,
for it,
no,
so that
no.
would be a bunch of data, that's like,
So the research
I don't know if we
needs for
list all that data,
Housing
it's
goal number
traffic
one.
patterns,
5% of
it's
existing housing
time,
stock.
seasonal demand, like it's all that
What
stuff.
research do we need to do on zoning? Okay, so.
I mean, it's all written in the RFP, but it's a lot, like we have like technology studies, and I mean, what kind of technologies out there?
And we are looking at what,
Through the zoning bylaws and identify what we can potentially amend to allow
It was Pat, in fact, I can look it up, I have the entire
for
thing on my
secondary
phone.
tertiary dwellings.
yeah,
What zoning changes are needed to do that?
okay.
That would be data research that, sort of stuff.
There was way, like, there was cost, revenue, potential.
That's what I was at, what's the existing incentives and what's the, are they effective, what's the effectiveness of it?
Okay, so we.
I mean, I
Legislation issues, the parking
Ineffectiveness.
We might
benefit,
want to know.
which obviously Article 66 was addressed tonight.
No, it's okay, you know, whenever you need to leave, okay.
That we're meant to
If you wouldn't mind jotting in.
For sure.
So we
Yeah, absolutely.
For me,
And I think effectiveness is real, on the first one is really important, because there was a lot of things that we're doing that we think is doing it, but I'm not so sure it really is.
a lot of big part of it was.
Well, let's just say that they,
I mean,
well, you
I
say,
agree with
okay,
data
we want to do
points, but it's,
tertiary dwellings. How many have been done?
How it's managed,
You know, we
like,
made the
physically,
zoning
like,
change
the
for more
resources
affordable housing.
needed,
In the
so
Mid-Island,
having
how much has
something
been
like
created? How much
Yeah,
affordable
so like
housing gets
it's gonna be
It's like an
created?
assessment.
Yeah, assessment of existing
Three
conditions.
people at
Right, so
minimum
sort
to
of-
be able to oversee that area to do those, to
So
get
sort of
through
like
things. You know,
how many
like,
times have
we don't know
existing
that
conditions
yet.
been
Are they
used
cops?
to
Are they
create
transportation?
how much, you know, we've
professionals, or DPW?
We've made these
We just don't
changes
know.
so we have more of these,
okay,
more
so-
affordable. How much is it working?
And here's some of the elements we had in
Tertiary,
there.
yeah.
It's a great idea, but I don't know.
I just think the sense, like, it really is, it's like, because we talked about the whole thing, the impact on the streetscape, the peak parking, seasonal parking, you know, aesthetic type of thing, all the permitting, the performance measures, the pricing, revenues, permitting, like the technology, we talked about the operations of the whole thing, starting to Nantucket,
Researching.
I don't think they are mulling over things.
the parking commission.
I love the
Charter
idea
commission, all that.
of, I think we're responding really well to these forums and some.
Because of the perception thing, so
I
we
think with
own
waste, there's a lot
it. Are they willing to pay for
great,
this? So we
movies and
can't say,
documentaries
people
out
will come
there
back and say,
that are
oh,
very
Megan's doing this.
So even starting
So,
with, you know,
Mike was just
if
looking on
it's
the private
symposiums
yesterday,
and starting
and
with
hopefully
something
we
like
say
a.
yes to it. And also in this
film.
was that this person
And then
reports
maybe
to
later on
the
there's
town
a
managers
forum.
review, the
I had
transportation
this little, I don't know,
plan,
I woke up thinking about it, but
to remain.
They have special.
like having people at the dump on a Saturday and Sunday with little boxes and index
yeah, so
cards
there's-
and
there's-
what do you think about? What do you like
I like
about
that.
them? What do you not like? Getting that kind of hands-on info. I think
So is that, are we,
Oh, are we supposed to do that?
Are we using them?
or are we trying to?
You can do it, or you can do it on pad.
Review.
They do more review, they do more, yeah.
There you go. Done.
If someone wants it,
We'll collect
if
those
someone wants it,
again.
I mean,
something different, they want something that's,
Change use or.
If they want
So do what options?
yeah, non-conforming, there you go, yeah, non-conforming.
I mean-
That's most of what they do, is mostly non-conforming, and
I think we also have to get some sort of analysis, I don't know if it's the right word.
I think it's really, I
View
would imagine
patterns,
it's a combination of
they've
both.
tied
I
this
think
stuff
if
like
there's,
The last few years,
And what our
there's the
assessment.
education around what zero waste
Pedestrian
is.
use,
I
I don't know
think
how you get
there's
that,
a
but
lot
what I
of
was
people from the
thinking
community that feel very
before
passionately about
was,
waste and about.
all right, so
the dump.
we
And I
have,
think that
what do we put in?
it would be interesting
500 people
to,
at 6
on one
FG type of thing, that might be
side,
actually
research
there.
what's going on
How big does the
elsewhere.
sidewalk need to be? I mean, they're not all gonna be
Figure out
using
who
it.
the thought leaders
Well,
are,
to
what
give
they're
you a point,
doing.
they're gonna be using Newtown.
Look at that.
You know, because they're gonna be walking
Get
through the
some of this
supermarket.
information
It
from
may
the
not be
community
used.
about what's important to people.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
around.
And so I don't know if that's
You know,
like
and
a
I don't
data
know
type
if
thing,
you
I don't know
have
if that
30
even
things you can do to
exists
choose
or
your
how you
waste, you
call
see
that,
which
but
ones
is it
line up with
pedestrian,
where there's inputs
projection,
already.
exactly.
That would be a research.
Because those are the ones that are
Yeah.
more likely to be successful more quickly. Something, so I think it's both.
So I'm.
Yeah, and we've already done.
I agree with that.
I mean, like, for example,
I'm wondering
like,
if
how the meters.
Yeah, I think a lot of the surveys have been done. I think the survey maybe later in the process, when we're getting, when we get, I don't know, like maybe later in the process.
Which
You survey people now, it's kind of everyone just guessing.
collecting all that type
I
of
think you
stuff.
kind of have to have your strategy, and have your things that you were thinking.
I think the data, our data would be disruption. How many town trees are gonna be lost? How many?
Is it Malcolm Gladwell? Yeah.
we're trying to get,
I guess only trees is a big thing.
you gotta get 15% of
But
the
I think
Community associations, because.
impact.
I mean, that's part of me about vetting the road option.
Fairly
Yeah.
recently,
Which side of the street is it?
that was very. cool.
Exactly.
Forums.
Right, even thinking about Newtown, across the state moving over there, when we were reading the whole thing, I'm like,
The more you do that, the
would,
more sort of
it makes more sense to have the sidewalk on the right-hand side if you're going towards Stop and Shop away from 6G or 4G. Because then you're on that sidewalk, you're right in, but then I'm like, but it really is easier to have the sidewalk on the other side.
Right, so that
And then have a crosswalk, or, and then is there a crosswalk now, over Hooper Farm, there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Well, yeah.
and then what happens, because now you're in, you'd rather have them coming in.
Absolutely,
to the
yeah.
bank than in on the old flock side, you know what I mean?
No,
Like,
I think this
just
does
think
go back
about
a
it,
little
but
bit
that's
to the
traffic
further refining
plan
of,
for
okay, in
flow,
3 years,
route options.
our goal is to have the
Are we considering these
definitive
are part of looking for some
recommendations to
public outreach?
POS by
Is
fall
that just in
2021.
general, are we gonna
And
try
we're
to-
essentially saying
Right
that
now, we're just talking about data.
Okay.
that
But I guess that
was
was
our,
vetting the
one of our
route
broad
options.
strategies.
I think so, yeah.
So to
I
achieve
agree.
this, so, and I think that,
It's total
the way
buy-in,
I'm
but you're right.
interpreting that,
when it
because
comes back,
that sort of
There's total
sets the frame that this group is going to look at our waste issues through, and that
Street.
zero
And I'm looking for the, I know somewhere
my sidewalk
online,
taken,
there's
that
a list
really
of
is
driveways
innovative.
or their traffic mitigation plan, you
So
know,
that
traffic
sort of,
calming.
that is,
Just like
what we
that
put up
first way.
there is replacing
Oh, this is great now, but we want.
Which is a broad
well, it could also be what, we could do a review of that. We could ask people for a review of the housing production.
Stuff that comes
We
out. More
through,
people gonna on Newtown, put up such a cost that they say, no, it's better to go.
consider, this was our
6FGs, we want to. get
consider
them
all
out
options
to-
for solid waste with a goal of
If you call it, like, a way up there by
definitive
Fairgrounds
recommendations
Restaurant, I want them to go that way and go.
Recommend.
What's
So that was our
But what-
goal.
what's interesting, the things that people want are the ones that
And then,
charge.
so what,
Interest and
I didn't say-
supply
Yeah, the
is
problem is that.
the mantra, you know.
Exactly.
Increase density, increase
And then what is that good, does that do to anybody?
But there's a
Yeah,
lot
you
of
know,
things,
so-
yes. So we may have to
That's the
look and
buy-in
say,
type stuff.
what
So
are
I
other
suppose that's really
strategies
what we're
are in there that
doing.
we aren't pursuing it?
I think people in Newtown would actually love the idea, I don't think they're gonna be against it.
Yep.
So it's taking existing research.
Well, yeah, it makes it a lot easier to
Yeah,
conceptualize and plug numbers in. Yep. And so then what we're
It's
looking at
irrelevant,
is, so
but I
in
mean,
order
I guess they do have
to,
traffic studies out there that say, for
So we're a
every
goal of
mile of
sustainability,
sidewalk
zero
person,
waste.
generally there's 20 less cars, like, I don't know.
and it's interesting, because I don't know that
Data there,
even,
but.
because in my mind, if we're, it depends on how broad we want to take that. Sustainability would also be talking about using renewable energy to run it. No, but I think
Safety concerns, pedestrian projection.
is down here.
Cost estimates, and I put kind of analysis of
Develop,
impact, like trees,
identify,
things like that.
For your own, it's just only for us.
It's really just trees,
identify, I'm just writing notes to myself.
Establish
landscaping.
collaborative, fast.
And again, yeah, this all goes back to the route options, because at some point,
Exactly.
it would be a sidewalk that would be a shared bike lane, we don't talk about.
Having some public forums.
Because I don't know what the hell we do once we get past 5 corners.
People say,
No, no.
If you're not gonna do surveys, we'll listen to
Pick up where we can, go down.
for data collection.
But before that, keep it
Well,
up.
the data collection
the
doesn't just
actual-
mean people's opinions, data
To the
collection
actual
also is. yeah.
Solid waste itself as opposed to.
Is actually,
Yeah.
yeah, because we can get opinions are easy, you know?
Well, maybe one thing is what data
How you been?
can or should be collected.
Just want to get that.
So then circling back, I do, yeah, no, I was just thinking about, there's a little bit of me that says, oh, that's too bad.
Get on to the day crap.
But also, you know, really understanding, and this is personal as well as this is, you know, the need for being able to focus and being okay with having a achievable goal.
Ground cover and.
Because otherwise, we're gonna have homes or.
We don't want to do
But
it,
it wasn't a
but
ton
it'd
of
be
stuff,
nice to
but
see
it
what
would
it could
help.
do. And what roughly.
Yeah, and again, I think this is where this whole concept, and I think you did point it out that very first, your response to what I had written out was that
So you're asking what
sustainability
is.
Oh, we do. We're going to do that. So
such a
Brian's
big
putting together how we
umbrella,
just
and then you
analyze
apply the
stuff.
same, when you start to break it down, you have to apply that to each
Oh,
of
that's good,
the
okay.
components underneath it, but
So, I mean.
it can get a little distracting, which is why
Just a
it
bed
ends up
or a
becoming a
table,
conversation that
you know,
stops people in
and
their
then things
tracks
we-
because you get too overwhelmed by the extent of it. My husband and I had the conversation about smoothies this morning and about what it would really mean to not
Yeah, that's that's better than what even.
smoothie with strawberries from Mexico, you know, if you were really going to be thinking about it at that level. So it is. So
But they bring all their own.
circling back, I
towels and
suppose,
things
to
like that.
Oh, they
Oh, I don't
the
know.
broad strategy where we said we're developing zero waste goals and initiatives.
Already on Nantucket, they bring their own.
Developing zero waste goals and initiatives. What you were saying is, what's the data and the data and research needed for that is
We just thought there's social.
what other towns, what are some of the possibilities when we talk about zero waste? Is that, I mean, to me, that's
So
where,
it's two
okay,
people.
we're developing zero
This
waste.
is one of the ones.
There's a place out in Fisher's Landing that we're renting right now. They notified that as of April, whatever, 30th, they're not, they're going
See,
to start.
I think before.
We kind of know it's going to
It's
happen.
before you survey.
But whatever.
Yeah.
So the new
Here's what we
visitors.
did, you guys did a couple years ago,
Association
survey,
the other
how many
end
employees, how many
would have
housing.
agreed to send
That was when I
everybody
first go
based on
around
that.
4 or 5 years
They
ago,
have to do
so
more of a
that's
guarantee
information
of
somewhere.
the housing.
And-
So what's going
and
to happen is
I think part of
the
this
one
is
out
the
at
sales
Fisher's
pitch to
Landing is
them.
also going to move
We need to do
into
this. It's not gonna, it's gonna
Richmond
help
and
you,
then
it's gonna help us have money to pay you, and we're gonna, it's
Okay,
gonna help
so
us. have
data and
people work
research,
with
yep.
you. Because it's to be a sales pitch rather than,
It's more fun.
do you wanna do it? If you say you want to do it, you're gonna hear, sure, pay me more, we want it.
Well, maybe something along the lines of, determine who actually physically needs housing, but
I'm really struggling between that, and we want to create a groundswell.
And suddenly now there are three
Beating down our
feeling
doors
the
to say we want this to happen, or
people are feeling the
are we looking for
They
something
all
so
vote.
For the
transformational?
young, and you'd have to, if you're doing that, you'd have to break them into ages and tiers, you know, you'd have to, so because I think the younger ones that are being paid less are probably willing,
unintended
and can't
consequence.
find housing, are gonna value it one way, and the older are gonna value it another way. Exactly, so if you're gonna do it, then that's,
Steve, Amanda.
you'd have to design the strategy to get at that.
Okay, I see what you mean,
And when I always explain it to people, you know, I talk to town boys and I say, it's, you know,
Yeah.
and I say, hey, you know, here, you're both doing the same job, this guy's got houses, he's getting paid a little less. If you get a raise, you're gonna get proportionally a little bit more of that. Well, yeah, but you should still get as much as he gets. It's like, you can't, it's always that argument.
Revelation or revelatory moment.
I know,
isn't
but
strong enough.
you're gonna have to, you're gonna have to,
Disruptive.
you're gonna have to neutralize it at least.
No more speaking before language.
all right.
All right, I'm gonna throw out, I'm just gonna throw out what I was thinking, because I think, I really like the way you're coming at it, and I think I'm thinking too logically. I think if someone said, develop zero waste
Giving you a
goals and
5-minute
initiatives for
warning.
Nantucket,
That might be a way
I would
to
say,
just said here.
okay, what is zero waste? What are we dealing with?
Well, but first off, it's existing, again, it's
And
existing
historically.
situation, you know.
Yeah, what do we have now?
Well, we make it the tables because he
Okay,
designed keeping.
Examine.
What kind of
existing-
trash are we dealing with, basically, what kind of existing state? And then I think,
Yeah,
so
what's
those are the
the
two basics, and
existing
then
status of
it's a
the,
combination of,
status of,
And that's always been done.
I think my
status
next,
plus stuff that's in the
my
works.
next logical step would be, okay, what are some of the possibilities? What are we talking about here? How, this has been done
I guess we
before.
would be one of.
What have other people been doing?
If nurses.
And then,
Which the majority of them do it anyway. But if they're going off to go to their kids' school, do it, whatever. You don't get paid. See, I don't get paid. You know what I mean? Like,
that
But
are types.
And yeah, it's just,
That doesn't need to be
So,
research, that's informational, that's
no
more.
longer was paid for work, like it was a change in roles, like.
I don't know what else to say.
20% of the stuff.
To me, that would be, a lot of this is specific
Yeah.
services that we're talking
Yeah.
about.
I just don't want the residents or their families to see that.
Under all these, the first thing we could do, under all these, when you meet with the department heads, ask them, what do you think we need to gather? What information do you know, before you even ask for what we want, maybe the first question is, what do we need to gather? What do you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do we need to do to do this right? Maybe just, before you say, we want this and this and this, what is available?
Go back to the STC.
This is their goal, is the
The more you can understand about your current system, the better off. You really have to understand your system to try to achieve it.
So does that then tie into understanding
Yeah,
the
well,
current
in 3
system?
years.
The system is what's going on at the landfill, but it's also all the people that are putting things. So in a way, understanding the current system is sort of understanding what people are thinking
This one would
about
probably
waste. That's part of that outreach already.
We would be there right
Training
now
last week.
if we had done these as 40Bs and not as local action.
The physical.
If we had made these as 40Bs, we'd be in safe harbor right now.
Necessities
Richmond and here, we'd be safe harbor right now.
Some of you don't want to freak out the residents.
We didn't choose that. It was an option.
So my son,
Maybe in town meeting, hopefully, so.
No, the board of selectmen, I asked, I mentioned, we should be doing this, why don't we do this 40Bs? And what I heard is, people are scared
Try
of
to set up
40Bs, we don't
meetings.
wanna scare them
You
away.
said that you're gonna be
And I'm like,
away,
well, but if
like-
they're 40Bs, as soon as you get the, as soon as you get the approval, they count towards toward the number, so then we would be in safe harbor. Richmond, same thing. Now they have to be actually built, physically built, so
Oh, that's right,
and then the reason was for their benefit, more than ours. It was Richmond. So anyway, that's,
So back to this research that we
all their, so.
I love it. It's amazing. It'd be interesting to hear what he should do.
Oh, so we could.
You should do a cookbook.
Sad to say, but
Here's my breakfast with,
already put the dinner box back first. Restaurants.
yeah, definitely. Again, I think it's chicken and egg, cart and horse, but I think so much of it is parallel. There's different stages. I just, so.
exactly, it's the same,
I
yeah.
had a dinner with my little food business last week. Oh
my God, it's already April.
Side business, supporting local food, so food within 100 miles.
I think I have chicken
But we
salad
had
for 20.
an event last Thursday night at Green, and we did it in conjunction with state of Nantucket, and no one knew what they were getting into. We said, join, invite only, looking local
How we
food.
doing?
And topic of discussion is sustainability. And we gave everyone, 20 people sat down, they had no idea what they were getting into. And they were writing essays on what it means to them. And so now we're using that to kind of inform.
Do we want to start with transportation?
Because we're
Yes.
awesome.
Well, no, I think, because I went into it with we're almost done. Almost done.
Facilitating now.
Separate the two.
Let's start with environment this time.
Let's start with transportation.
Alrighty.
Not a bad idea.
What
We
did
need
you
something to
find
focus on.
that you need to identify? What did you identify for data and research needs? And did you write them on a piece of paper for us?
I think we got stuff we can tell people.
Oh, is it your piece of paper? I thought it was a piece of paper.
Oh, no, I wrote it on my,
It's not so, it is a piece of
Then
paper,
you're gonna have to hand that over to
but
us.
not what you wanted.
that's fine, I'll hand it over to you.
Well, sure. Well, we had the advantage because Libby and I and the transportation planner have already put together a scope of service for data that we need for the parking management system. And actually, it's supposed to go out today or tomorrow. So I just pirated it, but in broad categories, it's technology, revenue estimates, usage, year-round data on parking trends. It's administration, staffing needs, like, I have them all. It just goes on and on, but we had the advantage that we already did it.
We have some
Patterns, aesthetics.
No, that's really not fair.
It's not fair at all, I know. But we did that brain power thing the other day, so we don't have to worry about it. So yeah, it's a long document that we have that is already in the works. And right, and then as Don was saying, we also look at other things of like, just the aesthetics of downtown, impact just even like around the entire core. The parking district, which Article 66 may flesh out a little bit for us tonight, but, so we have a lot of it. We wrote it down, but on Don's sheet, so we can write it
I'll
down.
give it to you.
Separately.
And the other goal?
But here's the question, how long did that take you to do that complete breakdown in all the different aspects?
Well, that was over probably 3 meetings.
Yeah, that's
maybe?
not, and that, so the point I'm trying to make,
Yeah.
we can't do what we just tried to do
Right.
in 10 minutes.
And we
If
had
it
the
took you
expert.
3 meetings and how many days, you know, we need to put that same amount of effort and energy
True.
into all these. We can't think that we did it
And we had the
today.
transportation planner with us, like.
Exactly.
Somebody
You
who
need
does
some,
this.
yeah, so anyway. we'll go.
No, agreed, yeah. That's why I was.
So the
can
next
do our
one
goal
for
until
the,
we get our
for the sidewalk connection.
Well, until we get people alongside us. I mean, I just think it's,
I'm looking for excuses here.
I'm not, I'm like, but anyway.
Reality.
It's gotta be iterative, and I think,
Yeah.
I overheard the group over here say that maybe we ask the department heads next week about what the research they
Yeah,
have.
I agree.
That they think we might need. That's a good first step towards engagement. So did you do the sidewalk one too?
Yeah,
Yes.
we said vet route options, design options, safety concerns, pedestrian projections, cost estimates, impact on landscaping and trees.
And there's some land takings for that too, is that right?
That's part of the cost
That's part of-
estimates.
Yeah, and part of the vetting of the route options.
Okay.
Yeah.
Environment, besides needing a sustainability officer?
The 3 main areas were conducting research on the definition of zero waste, so that was how I understood it, but confirm that or supplement that. I was going to add in and also just to see if there's other concepts that suit us more that we like the idea of, but sticking with zero waste for the most part. 2, sort of establishing a baseline, so assessing the current and historical composition of our solid waste so that we understand what the breakdown is of what we're dealing with, so how that will be applied to zero waste. Also assessing the cultural mindset and concern, so getting some sort of public outreach and public engagement about their thoughts on the dump. And then the third was, what are other towns, campuses, cities doing to achieve zero waste? So we have some inspiration.
So we went right to things like, well, we need to do, broad education in the community, we need to find subject matter experts, but we thought that this assessment and research needed to be done before we started deciding what people need to do.
Yeah.
Kind of start from where they come out.
Yeah.
Well done.
Okay. How's it?
Okay, so we had 3 goals, and we initially struggled a little bit with what Matt said at the beginning, how we're gonna do this right off the tops of our heads. So with regard to goal 1, the broad strategies were zoning was the first one, and we said examine existing provisions, identify potentially previously failed initiatives and why they failed, if we can. How many times have the existing provisions been used to create how many units?
And so it's like
We don't
doing an
know any of
assessment.
that, but somebody sort of specialized is gonna have to do some research into town records and stuff like that. Second item was internal buy-in and shared vision, and we said, we sort of struggled with this one a little bit. Meet with planning board and staff and other related groups such as the ZBA. But I don't know if that's, we sort of said to ourselves, but is that really research or is that communications? So it was kind of,
We started with
yeah. External public process. We said maybe a survey or a public forum, update our existing workforce housing needs assessment, maybe identify some target groups and talk to them about some of this. The last item in this goal was housing production guideline review. The housing production guidelines. We think some review has been done, so we'll get that out. Are there items that haven't been done? We should take a deeper look at our housing production plan with regard to the actual guidelines and have we met them, what are there things we haven't met, are there opportunities that we could make? Second goal is master plan for 6FG and identifying housing appropriate for town-owned properties. So the first broad strategy was, we really struggled here, establish collaborative, fact-based public process. So we again said, maybe a survey, maybe a public forum. And then we said, okay, data that could be collected would be an inventory of all town-owned property and an analysis by parcel, what's the potential for each one of these to have housing on it within current bylaws, zoning and stuff like that. The second item was collaborative, fact-based strategy and outreach to public employees, and we said again, surveys, public forums. How do we determine who needs housing? Would they be willing to give something up for it if they're town employees to have dedicated permanent housing? Do we need to do some kind of a demographic review of our employees? Because some may be more some may have it, some may be older, don't need it, whatever.
And some of that was asked about 5 years ago. There was a survey, I don't remember who did it. But so some of this information was there. I spent some time looking, because I know somewhere there's a whole bunch of Lincoln housing stuff. I couldn't find it quickly, but, you know, I think some of that was done 5 years ago.
May I add one thing? So looking at the hospital, we did a lot of surveys on housing association. One of the questions we asked was, do you have a housing unit or apartment that you'd be willing to rent to a fellow employee?
Okay.
And we were surprised at the number. We got 4 or 5 units out of that. Just that question, because people, of course, I'd rather rent to somebody I know than.
And I think on all, because she's writing on all of these, we were thinking some of the questions should go right to the department heads next week. Hey, we're looking at these, what information do we need? What would you suggest we be doing?
We made that a kind of top
Lincoln,
theme
yeah.
for general research here. Also, anything else about the hospital and the employees, but it's gone out of my head. Goal 3 is the safe harbor status, achieving 1% of the 10%. And we again said, we really struggled with this one. Surveys, public forums, examine our existing and or pending developments to make sure that we're maximizing everything we can out of them to get them into the safe harbor. And this last one was a joint examination and review of existing and potential incentives to encourage housing to achieve safe harbor status. And that sort of was the same thing as another item. So we didn't get too big with that, but that was about the same as something else like that. How many times have existing provisions been used to create X number of units? So back that. So it's very
So I'm going to ask one more thing before we go to the last item on the agenda. And if you know where we might be directed to find some of this information, and some of it's going to be an action plan, that would be helpful for Chuck and me to figure out how to create this list as a tool moving forward. So if you take 3 or 4 minutes and tell me whether it's internal, whether it's on island, or in the case of the research projects that you were talking about, Rita, there might be some resource that we should look to.
Okay, so goal 1.
One thing that I didn't,
Well, the first
can we
So zoning.
scale this, we revised
It
this
comes out to
goal
nice and
at
treated.
the last
Yeah.
meeting?
It all
Because
comes
we
out.
revised this goal at the last
By
meeting.
getting the official, I see what you're saying, right?
Really narrowed
But
it
the
down to
sidewalk.
considering all options
Maybe
for solid,
internal
just
and
this
external.
right here.
Yep.
I would think so, for the
and
most part.
left
yeah,
out
Because, like, we're not gonna be doing the public outreach.
What's in
really.
there is
Yeah, no consultant.
But other.
But okay, right, and all the
So
data we
that's
have is,
external.
like they're saying some of their data from other communities.
Well, except for
How many,
the
this thing we said,
setting
how
up
many times have
attached
existing
apartment
That part is good,
condition.
because that's actually in the
I think it's,
RFP, it
that's
does
all an
say
internal
other
thing, that's,
towns.
you know, that,
Even I'll
I think that's all
identify
internal, they
some
get up at that
same
meeting and talk about, we're following the master plan, and we cut the number of units, we know how many we have, we know, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
It's- They should
So,
have all
that
that.
is
you
one.
know.
Okay, so that's all internal.
I think it is.
Okay.
And all we have to
Yeah.
that's just
Because the
where.
technology's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so, I
Okay.
don't know if that might help you think about sources of this.
Meet with the planning board
Again,
and
we would-
staff, that's,
Yeah, you know what?
just with that internal. survey public forums, survey groups, that's probably internal to identify those things.
There's even, I came across this.
HPP guideline. That might be external. Internal and external. That might be.
Move it, Rita.
I'm dreaming over here.
You're envisioning getting in the way.
What was,
This is the city.
what was it that,
Oh,
yeah. Definitely. Well, and I think that's where, the places that are doing it are San Francisco, Seattle, Toronto, Santa Barbara, so. Yeah, absolutely. And I just, Santa Barbara, yeah. Oh, Santa Barbara is really amazing.
Well, that should be handed to them when they come to the, like, I think Andrew off the top of his head.
I wonder how they're gonna.
Getting it out of his head is.
Oh, did you?
I mean, I sort of envision a big.
What's been really interesting too is that
Teacher.
a lot of the, I was just looking at municipal posters.
But isn't that a GIS function?
But they don't, they're not gonna have some.
I have.
If we filtered it, if we went to GIS?
Saved on my phone.
I don't know.
You know what's on there now?
I mean, it was
There's
great.
something.
Could be done.
It was a business, but they had a couple different solutions for municipal
I heard somebody say.
composters, but in addition to, they looked at it as biosolids. It's not what's coming from. They looked at, they had different options for
Some of
it.
that,
That's the
And
sludge
there
that
may be,
comes
you know, a
from.
bunch of on the shoreline. and they said,
Those like
And for us, so that's an important
and you,
part of
like,
the
I didn't hear
biodigestor.
many people say,
Yeah, don't they?
the town was so
It's possible
secretive
that a
and doing
board member
it.
is.
They put it through the
GIS
biodigestor.
internal, But it's gonna require
You know, everything.
someone else to take it.
I'll
And then the question is, do we want every single one, or do we want to say, identify 10 lots, or identify?
Well, that's what your thing to say, yeah, maybe.
Well, I'm just saying, like, because I'm looking at that saying, are you gonna give somebody so much work that they'll never do
Comes
it?
out and it's by the
Or-
time
Say
David
maybe
takes
area by area.
essentially all the
Yes.
water,
In,
all of it.
We go next
Water
weekend.
gets extracted at the
Oh,
wastewater
you got to do one of the
treatment
game. No,
plant. Turned into
Yeah, not on that.
looks like we keep
We're not gonna get,
Michael left.
and then that's a
big
biosolid.
town owns it,
And then that gets sent to the
we're not
biodigester.
gonna look at that.
It
We
goes
should
through
look at
there with
everything
heat,
that
where it
potentially
becomes, well, the bacteria.
we could put as, or expand it.
We're going to Cooperstown this
Well,
weekend.
those are the questions.
So it's not 10,000 person.
And I can't help but think too about all the pharmaceuticals.
I don't think it's that many.
I know you do.
So,
Yeah,
and that's
I just pulled it
what
up.
frustrates me when, sort of
And I don't, you'd have to start clicking on them, but
cradle to cradle. I always
Town of
think
Nantucket, Stewart Wharf, Tacoma Way.
I'm not choosing for
It's time to
Yeah, so we're just gonna do a little work, like, okay, this is a big,
that.
there's nothing can be built here.
Let's go on a date.
And there could be something like
Compost that we can.
Tacoma Way.
Oh, I know.
So it's, or it's in the plan that we're doing.
Yeah, it's probably not. It's
Broad. I don't think it is, well,
I know, I agree,
So I think I
Boston
call
City
it.
Council, I worked there for 6 years.
Night.
They eventually, after I left, they made their own rule, like there's a policy that have to rotate every 2 years.
Traditional.
So it's basically like everyone gets a ribbon, so it's not so much about leadership or whatever,
So as long
but they all
as,
just give thought on
as
it.
long as it's in
And some people didn't want to do it, so it's like too bad you have to. You may actually never not be, not like, you may never get to be a chance, even if you want it, because you may not get elected again, but you, you're going to be president.
Start out.
Well, see, it's a big deal because this happened twice in modern history.
So, but that's, when we look at this, that's one of our big issues.
And
is
it's in the
that we do
charter.
have These biosolids that need to be dealt with
It's a
somehow.
nice election. So it's so many.
Okay, so it's just, that's going to be
And
external.
then they loved him, and he had 2 years to like prove so.
Yeah, well,
And
that's.
then he was the longest serving mayor.
And then I added
I
in,
think he with Curly or something like that.
I mean, those jackets could do.
So it's a big deal.
a lot of this is garbage. And I did this when not this
How you
go-round,
feeling,
but
Mayor?
15, 20 years ago. I did it, Penny and I did it. We went through every, because we couldn't get it from anyone, so we went through and tried to find it. And it was a ton of work.
treatment. So,
But a lot of it's baloney, a lot of it's,
Give me one more thing.
internal would require outreach for that. And then I added,
Yeah, I don't think it'd be in like lifetime, but we may be alive, but not really active.
that's the, that's
Well, this is
the
stuff that like, we talk about
surveys,
internally. 'cause it's
forms.
like,
Okay, we're done.
Okay.
Hosting dinners where people talk about it.
Everybody ready?
Oh,
I see requires outreach. Okay.
yeah.
A meeting on parking, then a meeting on housing.
And I'll send more links as well. And then I added your link to disruptive educational research.
You guys all set?
Quality time to any. What's that?
So we will collect those papers, and then Chuck and I will put them in some kind of format, and we'll be back in touch with you and about collecting some of this information and what some of the next steps are. So the next steps, leaving from today, are that we're going to, 4 of us are going to meet to talk about the cabinet meeting on Monday. And then the next meeting of this group is April 24th, and we will get an agenda and prep in advance for that one. And that will be a meeting with this board, this group, and all of the, well, some of the department heads anyway, to talk about the plan and as a buy-in thing. We wanted to do, that's the rest of our agenda, right? Yeah, we wanted to do a quick evaluation on what worked and how today went. Chuck and I wanted your feedback.
Very well prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did well as a team.
Yep.
Obviously, it wasn't just 2 presentations by individuals, it was collective. It was a collective presentation.
Kept us on time.
Yeah, I think you need to be a little stricter about time. But other than that, I thought it worked very well, and we got right at it, and
Sometimes it might be helpful at the beginning, when we go through, maybe clarify the agenda, to get agreement of this team on whether your projected timelines are doable.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, actually, when we send this out, we could, indicate durations and you can respond back.
Yeah.
If something jumps out.
I think it's important to do that as a group.
Yeah.
We should have an agenda item that just clarify the agenda.
Yeah, okay.
The town hall?
Just one in person.
That's town hall.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Was it a lot of work for you guys to assimilate all this stuff? Like, wrap your head around it? Yeah. Thank you.
We had a couple meetings, a lot of it by email. I think we're pretty much on the same page in terms of process and content. Lucky you.
Do you two feel confident that we can get everything we need to get done, honestly, by 3rd week of May for this presentation? Does it seem like a lot?
I think you probably have got a lot already for that presentation. I think I took some notes today about gonna want to tee it up to say why you're doing this, as well as what's you've done and what's next. But I don't think it's a very long presentation, and I think for the May one, it's pretty broad strokes.
What's the biggest challenge? Is just making sure everybody has looked at it and vetted it, all the different groups and
Yeah.
committees and staff, so there's no surprises.
Yeah.
So everyone's like,
And
rah-rah.
we need to talk about this, but the next meeting might be the first half with department heads, and then the second half, just the group talking about the presentation, based on what we've heard and all of that.
And we need to actually get it put into like a PowerPoint and
Yeah,
Yeah.
prove
I have some
that
ideas on
a
that.
few times.
And some thoughts about who's gonna maybe, do the speaking points, or maybe each board member will be doing a particular part of it, or is it just gonna be a couple, but with the entire group present? Logistically, what's that look like in terms of flow? So it doesn't get chopped up too much?
So we thought you guys would just,
Tell us what to do.
Janice.
Well,
Right now, and where does it occur? Does it occur at a board meeting? Do we
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
outreach to Rotary clubs and Chamber of Commerce?
I was just gonna ask something along those lines. This presentation that we're gonna be doing, it's at a board meeting, and I guess I'm asking, is it meant to be at a board meeting? Is it gonna be the only item on the agenda? Is it gonna be one of the items on maybe a reduced agenda? And is it just meant to say, hey, town, we've worked on a strategic plan for the past 8 months, a year, really, here it is? Is that what it is for?
Those are all good questions.
Yeah, I think we
So
want
at
to
some
help
point-
define
We'll
that,
have to figure that out.
Okay.
just to be clear. And again, what does success look like? For that rollout? And it's just the beginning of, probably multiple presentations over time.
So there are people that talk to me that are really looking forward to hearing what hearing this.
Do you think 30 minutes would be enough? An hour?
It depends on what we have to.
I think 30 minutes.
What do you think now, though?
I would think the PowerPoint would be around 30 minutes, and then people might have questions.
30
Yeah,
minutes
even-
is like 10 slides or something.
Yeah,
so
or
just a-
even.
30 minutes, if we're trying to, I mean, maybe it's 15.
Yeah, I'm-
We're just trying
Right,
to.
right, right, yeah, and kind of think
Depends on what
about.
we're trying to accomplish. You're trying to say, if you want them to come away with, wow, this is thoughtful, they put a lot of work into it, here's my opportunity to react to it, and here's their next steps. Like, whatever those things are, then you do it in as little of time as possible. You're
'Cause-
giving me-
We might.
No,
get-
no, I'm listening.
Okay.
I'm actually thinking about, I'm just visualizing
Yeah.
it happening.
Yeah,
That's what
me
I
too,
wanna get
because
to.
I'm thinking at the end of it, so say we present it, and then we get some people there who say, well, how come you didn't do X, Y, Z? Can you change it?
Just know you said they're out of order.
Yeah.
We can capture comment cards or some tool
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
Yeah, I think to me
But,
that would be
but
successful.
is the intent that, like, would the board entertain, oh, yeah, we forgot about this one really big thing, we should add that in? Are you gonna do that?
To an extent, yeah, I think we should.
Or take something out?
We have to decide that.
What if a
Going in.
massive amount of people show up and say, this is ridiculous that you're doing the safe harbor thing? Big blow, but,
Then we
Maybe
need to be
that's
prepared
not-
to explain why.
yeah, okay.
And do we go, or do we go back to what Chuck said, this is the board's strategic plan, this isn't the necessarily community's plan, I mean, this isn't the, I don't know, well,
But I think you have taken all your constituent input and thoughts already into this. This isn't,
and we have to think of that, so we always sit and talk about that.
yeah.
But this is just part of the natural feedback process. As it continues to evolve, you'll get new information and new things that, geez, hey, I didn't even think about that.
But if,
And then
I think
capture
people
that.
say this is
And
the
then-
wrong direction, I think I would listen.
Can't we hold both batons? Can't we say, this is our plan, we really worked hard on this,
Yeah.
we're also gonna listen too?
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah,
you can
I
do
think it's
both.
both, yeah.
And
I
we've
think that's a
also
good
talked
analogy.
about that we would reevaluate once a year, and that this
Right.
was something that is defined we're trying to define something that we could actually feel like we could accomplish within 3 years.
It almost would be good if somebody did come in and say, why are you doing that? Don't, because I want you to do this, so we can say, this is exactly why we're doing this, so we don't just keep changing our minds. And we have a focus, this is important to the community based on our feedback.
And we're trying, and one of the biggest things we hear, I think all of us, is that we're way too reactive, we're not proactive enough, and that is another reason why we're doing this.
Why is it X, Y, Z in here? Well, it's either already been done, or we. can't get
It's
that
underway, we
now,
don't need to deal with it, it's.
Or we decided that this is the priority, nothing
Yeah.
against,
Like, they're not gonna
This
see coastal
project.
resiliency plan in this, because we're gonna have maybe this separate, below the line kind of a thing that says, there are these things we're already working on, that, because I can potentially see people showing up to say, oh, all we've been talking about is coastal resiliency, the heck was not even in your plan.
might not be something we want to put in the slide presentation, but something that we could present for each category,
Yeah,
right, each
because
priority.
there's 2 or 3 things like that.
I also think-
Like inventory of existing projects.
Yeah.
We're not gonna turn these off, but they're still there
I
too.
think that needs to be,
Yeah, and I think we
Yeah.
got to package that.
I also feel that the sustainability offices has kind of come up in response to things like the coastal resiliency plan, where we didn't really have someone that was clearly taking this on and moving it forward, and that there's so many other environmental issues in that same category that by having a sustainability office and having that as a goal, we're trying to have
It'll
them.
eventually get landed
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. I think as well, though, just going back to Matt's comment about managing expectations, that when people come to us with these great ideas that we didn't include or big issues, having some sense of, we're going to consider it. Don't expect us to change the goal tomorrow and change the whole strategic plan, but we'll consider this and we review this every year and we'll work it in then, just so that, or whatever we decide is, but just so that people are clear about what to expect.
And we're already collecting input for next year's revision or review.
That's a thoughtful, yeah.
This is amazing. I'm so happy.
holding both tongues. Or we can hold both beers. We can have an IPA, and we can have something light.
Depends on
We
the
can have the
day.
nitro and we can have the Americana.
Well, what if I want
I
wine?
go coffee, but thank you.
We'll see now. Talk to me in 3 years.
You can have wine in 3 years.
Yeah.
I want to whine about my wine now.
Okay,
But
so.
see, that might change
the
all of
four
us,
of
we said
in a
why.
couple minutes?
You have time now?
Actually,
Okay.
Not like massive.
No, but just, yeah, kind of a quick.
So everybody except Greg and 3 of us is dismissed.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not staying.
We're set on.
That means Erica's staying, because
The
Erica.
next meeting is, yeah, we've set it on the calendar, it's the 24th, yep, 11 to 1.
I think you better find some.
See you guys in a bit.
Yeah, see you in a bit.
Do we use hand or do we actually say?
Maybe that's the next.
Yeah, well, that is.